Now, the convention might have been delayed, but delegates are gathering in Florida and they're expected to waste little time in confirming Mitt Romney as the Republican candidate for the White House tomorrow. Here to help guide us through what to expect over the coming days is Australian-based correspondent for America's NBC network, Sara James. Good morning. Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
Now, we know that the polls are extremely close, and how crucial are conventions to gaining the attention and hopefully the vote of the swinging voter, and in particular this convention, now that there's a cloud over whether it will continue?
Well, they're very, very important indeed, because this is an opportunity really for the candidate to show who he is, who his running mate is, in an unfiltered way. They've got the airwaves. Suddenly they're not talking through the media. They can make a direct pitch to the American population. So it's a very important moment. And obviously the storm clouds are hanging over quite literally in this case, and it's going to be very difficult. So they're going to be judged on how they handle the storm in addition to everything else.
We'll get to how Mitt Romney engages voters in a sec, but it's pretty bad, as the operatives say, pretty bad optics for this storm. The split screen situation of the storm in one corner of the TV and the Republicans in funny hats and balloons in the other.
It's a very tough one, Michael. It really is, because on the one hand, they want to have that enthusiasm and that energy, but they cannot obviously avoid the fact that
it's a huge distraction.
It's an enormous distraction. And of course, many people might be wondering, look, we know this happens. Why on earth would they even be holding their convention in Florida? And the reason is Florida is a swing state. It's not the popular vote in America that chooses the president. It's the Electoral College. The votes in Florida really matter. So they thought they were being very strategic in having their convention there, but it's working in a boomerang effect.
Because it's almost 7 years to the day that Hurricane Katrina struck.
Which is bad juju in a way as well for them, because of course that was terrible for then President Bush. He wasn't regarded as doing a good job in that situation, and so it sort of brings up that specter. But they have a number of storms to contend with as well. So there's not only the physical manifestation that's happening outside, but what's happening in the floor as well.
Now, the soft sell has well and truly picked up for Mitt Romney. We showed our viewers yesterday the report by Chris Wallace from Fox. Mitt Romney and his wife Anne invited the Fox crew into his house. They were baking brownies, they were talking about shopping at Costco. But, and you watch this very closely, is it too late? Should Mitt Romney have done all of this years ago? He's been running for president effectively for 6 years.
He's been, I think, indeed, probably even longer than that, in a kind of a more subtle way. I think he's had his eyes on the prize for a very long time indeed. But I think it's very important. He realizes from the polls that he's not considered as likable as Obama is. And so it's really important to have a situation in which you see him with his wife. And his wife, Anne, is a very admirable woman. She's battled back from MS and cancer. She's a very likable person. So he wants the American people to see him in this context, not in the way of being a very well-to-do man whose taxes he doesn't want to release. He doesn't want to release all of his
taxes.
And the
Democrats have been very successful in defining him as such already.
Exactly so. I mean, indeed, this is again getting back to why conventions are so important. It's a way in which we define who these two gentlemen are, first in the Republican and then in the Democrat convention. That's what this is about. There's a huge history of sort of stagecraft, and there's language that comes out in conventions that they have for years and years and years. If you think going back to 1988, 1,000 Points of Light, A Kinder, Gentler Nation, there's language that comes out. Or 2004, Obama giving a keynote speech and then later becoming the president.
That was his big platform.
How much do you think, you're talking about language, with Todd Aiken's comments last week about legitimate rape, how much will that play out and have an impact on the Romney-Ryan ticket?
Such a good question, and it will really have an impact. The reality is that the Democrats are trying very hard to make Todd Aiken be the third man on the Republican ticket. Of course he's not, but what they're trying to do is couple Aiken and Ryan, who have very similar views on abortion, and they're trying to say that these comments of Aiken really suggest that there is a problem for women in voting for the Republicans. Now, there's a huge gender gap. Women vote more for Democrats, men vote more for Republicans, and the Republicans want to close that gender gap. But the comments of Todd Aiken have been very difficult. You know, this is a representative from Missouri who's running for the Senate there, and he's saying that in the case of a legitimate rape, and of course we put that in quotes, that somehow a woman's body can reject it. Well, of course this is nonsense. Mitt Romney has asked him to step out of the race, but he said no.
OK, we're into the final dash for the line. How do you see it playing out? We had another very close poll yesterday. There's only 1 point between the two on most of the national polls.
And I actually think that's accurate. I think this one goes down to the final wire, and I think it could be very close. If it's going to split, it's going to be late in the game. But with the Electoral College, it's not over yet.
And Florida has played a key role in that, as we well know.
Exactly so. It'll be interesting, that's for sure.
Sara James, thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Sarah.